Hey, welcome back to another episode of A Warrior Spirit, where we let your inner warrior out to light. Today, I have the privilege of being with a good friend and person that I now consider a brother, Michael Fabber. Michael is the founder of UnleashUNow and a really great soul that I think embodies what we're all about here at A Warrior Spirit. Welcome, Michael.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Many people don't know UnleashUNow is a foundation, a community you started to help. Really, the mission was suicide prevention, right?
Right, to end suicide and self-injurious behavior across the world.
And that's an important mission to you because it touched you personally. Is that correct?
100%, sir.
In what capacity? I know that your mission has been around, what, a decade now? You started off with this probably a decade ago?
I would say I knowingly did it a little over a decade ago.
Okay.
Knowingly.
Knowing.
I think this is like, since I was like 10 years old, it's been part of my fabric.
So I know that personally because you're a friend of mine and I know kind of your backstory. I know that if people were to look at you today, they would see, a successful entrepreneurs, done multiple businesses, done a lot of really good positive things, but your life didn't always start off that way, did it?
No. And also, I always love when we talk about this because it's all perspective, right? I mean, Bill Gates, if he had my life, he'd think he was broke. All right. It's like, so it's all perspective. Johnny down the block thinks I'm doing good. Bill Gates thinks I'm struggling and I need help. He'll make a donation. All right. It's all perspective based. I think we just want to live the life we desire to live with who we desire to live in the way we desire. When we can do that, that's how I deem success.
Well, I think if you have control of your time and your money and where you spend both, that's pretty successful.
There you go. I like that.
But tell us about where you started off, because you jokingly say that you barely graduated third grade, like you failed third grade. You had 18 years of school with a no degree, which is ironic because your mom has 2 PhDs, right?
In less time.
Right.
Bothers the hell out of me.
So tell me a little bit about that. You were on the wrong side of the law a lot. Tell me about that early journey.
All right. I always say why I believe in so many other people so much is because I know how many mistakes I made and I'm here. So if I know if I could do that, I'm not special, right? Like there's not the special DNA in me. All right. If my dad's not here. If he was here, he'd be like, there is, son. Right. But he's not. So that's good. I made every mistake and I didn't have to, right? Like I admire a lot of people's stories because a lot of times I didn't have a choice. These were cards I was dealt. And then I had to make the best of a hand. And I'm like, I took a good hand. I was like, let's see how shitty I can make a hand and then see if we can win with it. Right. So it was all choice. Right. And my parents are good parents, right? Like they raised me and loved me the way they knew how, right? My father wanted to teach me how to be a man. He did. I just didn't understand that when I was younger. And my mom loved me more than I think anyone should ever love anyone. I think I caused her more pain than good. I was still trying to make up for it. But I was that classic kid that, so to understand my mindset, this goes all the way back to, like, literally I was born deaf. I was born without the ability to hear. I didn't get the ability to hear until I was like 3. So I didn't learn how to talk until I was 5. That's why I talk so damn much now. I'm trying to make up for lost time.
Never knew that about you. That's interesting.
Yes, sir. So, and then I failed 3rd grade. And in 5th grade, I would have to walk back to like reading class and English class. And you don't like labels. We don't like labels. We like identities. We don't like labels.
Right.
Identities is something we give ourselves. Labels is something people give us. So I didn't want to be the dumb kid, right? So how could I get that label off of me and bring the identity that I would be more welcome to? Well, I was a trouble kid, right? Because I welcomed that. It was my control. I picked when I did it or not. I felt stupid all the time, right? But I didn't have to cause trouble all the time. I got to pick when I did that. And then picking that identity young, and then in 5th grade at 10 years old, my brother comes one of the 22 that served the country, that took his own life in a day, right? And I always tell the story, right? I fell asleep on the couch and woke up and saw my mom on the ground crying, and my dad standing over, and my sister standing over, and I was like, oh my God, what happened? Right. And that moment of, do I pretend like I'm still sleeping, or do I go over, right? Like nightmare versus dream. And the dream was in the sleep, and the nightmare was in real life. And finding out your brother died, and in our family, men, we weren't hurt. We were angry, right? Hurt, that means someone did something to us. Anger, that means we do. Again, controlled identity. All right. So then I became the troubled kid that was angry because I was hurt. And that stuck with me for a long time and caused a lot of trouble. So I was in and out of juvie and out of court, spend enough time in cuffs and cells, for me at least. Right. And at 20 years old, I was facing 20 plus years. I always say the story. It was like in 1 week, I was facing 20 plus years. My court case got dismissed. Spoiler alert, right? Because I'm here. I got shot at. Another spoiler alert. I'm here, right? So and then I found out I was going to be a dad, and that was kind of a moment where you would think it made like your come to Jesus moment, but it was my let me change places moment. I wouldn't say yet I didn't address anything. I just moved, right? Because I figured I can get less shit in Delaware because no one knows where Delaware is.
Right.
So that's kind of like the early journey.
How old were you when your brother passed?
I was 10.
So from 10 till 20, you were just an angry rebel doing whatever you could to control.
Rebel without a cause.
Rebel. Well, you kind of had a cause, was to identify who you wanted to be, right? So
to a degree.
So then you found out you're going to be a dad. And what was your come to Jesus moment?
It wasn't until years later, 2011. One of my best friends calls me, and I'm hitting fake golf balls in my yard, and I'm not paying attention. And if like you know me, if you know me, I do a lot in human behavior, right? So little things that a lot of people will pass by and not recognize or think of. I'm sitting there like analyzing everything, the words you use, how you said them, the voice you have, right? The body language in which you said them, right? To identify what you're truly saying, so I can better serve and be part of the conversation and relate and connect to you. I'm not doing any of that. I'm hitting plastic golf balls, right? And the next day I find out he's no longer with us. He took his own life. And that was when like that fake reality, right? Of not dealing with anything that happened. There's a bunch of other things that happened, but those are two of the big moments. I always say they're like the race markers. It was like that was the start and that was the finish of that me. That reality crumbled, and I had to figure out how to put it together. And that was like this needs to change. I need to do some things moment. It's
interesting because you study human behavior and psychology. Do you think part of that was because of your early disability of not being able to hear and having to figure out other ways to connect with individuals around you? You had to kind of observe body language and
yeah, I never really thought of that, but it could 100% be part of that.
I think we are very adaptable to what our needs are, and we still need to feel a connection even if we're not a part of that world. So maybe that's part of where that came from. Now, how old were you when your friend took his own life?
29.
29.
About 28, right before I was 20.
And was that prior to you sitting on the beach yourself, or did you do that after? I did it after Carter passed before. Okay. So you had your rock bottom moment, awareness, your awakening, but yet you still later on sat on a beach.
My rock bottom wasn't a day, right? That's why I think sometimes we think it's like this, the thing that springboards it.
Yeah.
My thing was a springboard over months. Because after Carter, I went into booze and pills, right? And then I went onto the beach with a gun, right? And for the second time, my daughter saved my life, right? That's why I said I was supposed to be her hero, but she's mine. right? And it was like who the hell are you? What are you doing here? Like, what is this all about? There has to be something. Then I went hitchhiking across America and disappeared. Another missing person report. Ended up in Mobile, Alabama. And then it was like, all right. Like, I remembered something someone once said, and it was like, did anyone breathe easier because you existed? And the answer was no. Right. And it was like, man, I'm here almost 30 years. And I can't think of someone that breathed easier because of me. The hell have I been doing? Right. And at this time, it's not like I'm broke. Right. Like, I got money, I had businesses at this time, right? Like, a lot of people, I had a lot of material. A lot of people on the outside would be like, wow, he's killing it. That's why I talked about success earlier. It's like, you can look like you're successful and be miserable. We've seen it. Yeah. Right. We've seen it just recently. Again, we were tested by someone that's very well known that ended up taking their own life. Right. And everybody on the outside would look at it. What a huge success. Right. So it wasn't like it was all bad. It's just I didn't deal with me. So I was bad. And it was that process, that length, that my rock bottom was a long bottom. I sat there for a while.
So how old was your daughter at this time?
Man, 8.
So 8 years prior, you said that she saved your life, but for 8 years, you still took a journey that wasn't conducive to that life that she saved.
100%. Because she took me out of a lifestyle that I was in that was much more reckless and dangerous. I think a year before that, I was voted most likely to end up in dead or in jail by 21 in high school. Right. So it was like, it was a much more dangerous lifestyle I lived before that. I took myself away from some of the danger parts of the lifestyle. I didn't deal with me. So I said, I dealt with the outside. I didn't deal with the inside. And then years later, I had to deal with the inside. And
during that time frame, I know you at one point owned a restaurant. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. I owned a restaurant bar. Yes, sir.
Now, was this after your Mobile journey or during that? Before. Okay. So that was part of what led to this journey. And that didn't end well for you, did it? The restaurant?
I mean, no, it didn't end well. A lot of endings aren't good. No, I learned a valuable lesson. Was have proper insurance. Because the restaurant on Father's Day had a fire and ended up burning down, and I didn't have proper insurance, so we lost a bunch of money.
So you tell a story of you sitting on a chair, smoky chair. Can you share that story? All
right. So it was like a couple days, 2 to 3 days after the restaurant burned down, and I don't know if you've ever been involved in like a fire or something, but after it burns down, then you go through and you kind of see what you can save, what you can't save, what you want to save, what you don't want to save. And us even further in the restaurant, we had to throw out and gut a lot of things, right? Like all the fridges and freezers that got burnt up had food inside them, right? Liquor bottles, juice bottles, milk, right? Like the fire was so hot that it was exploding or burning through plastic or exploding glasses. I remember walking through the liquor closet, and literally I would try to pick up a bottle to take because it was still full. And as I touched it, it would shatter. And there was so much liquor on the floor, I thought I was getting drunk through my feet, right? Because I was just storming through liquor the whole time. And you do a lot of cleanup, and there's a lot of hustle and bustle and trying to figure out. And we had a restaurant bar which had booze. So ATF was involved, and they played like good cop, bad cop with me, which brought me back right to when I was a troublemaker dealing with law enforcement a lot. And one guy was like very supportive, and the other guy was like trying to be tough Tony with me. And I don't respond very well with that, especially then. Right. I'm much more, if you think I'm a smartass now, I was smartass with no filter and no care then. So it was worse. Right. Much ruder. So everybody finally leaves, and it's like you have a moment to yourself. Right. And there was a bunch of things I never wanted to feel, right, that I felt numerous times in my life that now I felt in business that I never felt before. And it was like you couldn't do anything, right? Like when my brother passed, I couldn't do anything. When one of my best friends passed, or one of my good friends passed in high school, Matt Allen, I couldn't do anything, right? When my pops passed, I was a teenager, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything. It was done, right? And it was that moment where it felt like people that believed in me and that backed me, and that people that were supporting it in the journey, they were all let down, and there was really nothing I could do. Right. Or I didn't at least see it at the time. And there's things that break souls. I say our souls get broken at times, and it's unfortunate. It sucks, right? And it's like it's like I would love to say that it's a great thing that comes from it, and it can, but at the time it's fucking awful,
Right.
right? And that was one of those soul breaking times, and literally so much so that before that, all I knew was entrepreneurship type, right? Like I worked a couple of jobs, but I was more of an entrepreneur guy. And that made me run away from entrepreneurship for years because I was like, I don't want to feel that way again and be responsible for that again.
So you found a burnt chair and you just sat there
and cried,
which for your family, I can imagine was even a bigger deal because you weren't taught to share emotion.
We didn't cry. Right. Yeah, we didn't cry.
So that had to be adding onto the weight of you because you're feeling, man, I'm just sitting here crying. Right.
Right. Yeah. You felt helpless. Right.
Yeah.
It was like helpless and hopeless. That's a shitty feeling.
Those are two feelings that are not propelling us forward. So let's take you back to Mobile for a minute. And having been to Tennessee and driven through Mobile, I can understand parts of why that's a rock bottom moment.
Right. Facts.
Yeah. And you say, and I know you say this a lot, I know that there's good parts of Mobile. I just didn't find them. Right.
Right. I just wasn't in them.
Yeah. Like
it was a great setting for where my life was.
Yeah. I at one point was homeless living out of my car, and I was living here in Phoenix. That was the second time I'd been here. I've been to Phoenix 3 times now. I've lived here 3 times now, but at that time.
Nice.
And so I went to downtown YMCA. Now, I didn't know the city for nothing, right? So I was in the downtown YMCA, and I spent one night in there, and I said, fuck this. I feel safer in my car. And I went back to living in my car. It's like, no. So I understand, how you must have felt in Mobile.
Right. Yeah, right. It was definitely interesting.
Yeah.
I say if you were to write a movie and you were like, let's create the set for this.
Yeah.
It would just be there. Like, we don't have to create it. Let's just drive over here.
Yeah.
Got it.
So at that point, when you had your aha moment, what was your next epiphany and step? Like, what did you tell yourself, or was there somebody there who helped you get there, or?
No, I would say they weren't there physically. It was a bunch of people that have touched my life or spoken to my life before that, when I didn't realize that's what they were doing. All right. Like when I was too young and dumb. No, I'm just old and dumb. When I was young and dumb, I didn't know people were speaking into me, but they were. And then when I needed it, it came. And it was just like, man, I became so much more thankful to so many people that were in my life that I thought gave me a hard time, or that I thought were hard on me or didn't care. And then I found out, man, that's how they were showing they were care. I just didn't recognize it. So I was by myself, and it really started off simple. It's like I said that line, no one breathed easier because I existed. It was like every day I just wanted to make someone's life better. Just by being here, I want to be focused on making people's lives better. Right. And so I was by myself. I came back to where I lived. Everybody was like, oh my God, like, you're okay. Right. And I swear to God, everybody just thinks I was like, on like a couple week bender or something. Like they all thought I was just got too high or something somewhere. Right. And then found my way back when I sobered up. Right. Literally the first time I saw my buddy Alex, who you met, Alex McClure, he asked if I was high. Right. Like, because I said, we're going to change the world. He was like, oh, okay. Are you high right now? It's like, no. Right. Like I've never been more sober. And there was a big gap in my life where I didn't do anything. Right. Like no drugs, no alcohol, no nothing. Right. Because I was just like, no, like I'm controlling this shit. Right. And I said, we're going to change the world. And he was like, people like us don't. And I was like, no, we're the exact people that do. He's like, all right, buddy, how are we going to change the world? I said, one person at a time. Let's start with one. And at this time, like I'm going through like certification programs. Can I tell the story?
Yeah, please do.
First person in life I changed that intentionally in a positive way. So I go through like 1 million certification programs. I love learning. I don't necessarily love the system in which we learn in, but I love learning. And I go through like name the big name, I went through their program, right? Like Tony Robbins went through it. Tom Maxwell went through it, right? Like Eric Thomas went through it. IPEC went through it, right? Like went through all these programs. I can tell you some things that everyone has a strength, everyone does not have a strength, right? Like, so there's yin and yang, right? And everything, including ourselves. And so I come back and I'm like, I am so hype, right? I've learned so many things I can do, and already areas that I've already learned that I can implement in this life. And I'm like, this is going to be so easy for me because I already have this foundation. And I'm like, Alex, come with me, man. I'm going to show you how good this is. And we go to a diner. It's called Hollywood Diners in Dover, Delaware. And we walk in, and like it's an old school diner. So there's like the booths and then the bar counter, right? Which isn't a bar counter, it's just a diner counter. All right. And people are at tables and stuff, but there's one guy sitting at the counter. And I'm like, that's my guy. All right. He's by himself. So I don't have to try to work both people. It makes it easier. All right. So I'm like, he's it. So I walk up to him like, sir, as he's eating his meal. I slam the counter next to him. I should have did this a different approach, really, but I wasn't thinking. So I slammed the counter next to him. I'm like, sir, my name is Michael Fabber, and I'm here to solve your biggest problem. So tell me what your biggest problem is, and I'll solve it right now. And he looked at me dead in the eyes and he said, you. Right. And I was like, bet, enjoy your meal. And I turned around and walked to Alex and I said, one down. All right. And we walked out. And so that's how simple it started.
Nice. And you talk about Alex a lot, and Brent and Mike Hudson. You've surrounded yourself now with higher caliber, higher quality people, but your story on how you met Alex is kind of interesting. Can you share how your union with him came to be?
What's crazy is when you think about the people I'm closest with, our stories are always weird. So Alex is in the area I moved to. Alex lived in, and he worked at EB Games, which was like a game place. You could buy video games, right, and movies. And I love video games and movies. At least did more then. It
was like a Blockbuster for videos, right?
Right, for video games, and they had some movies. Yeah. Right. And it's like us nerds headquarters. Like, we love this shit. Right. And so we would go in there and buy video games and just talk shit, right? Like, he was like a big like first person this games, and like we were like Halo people like for Xbox, right? So we'd go in and he would talk trash about Xbox, and we would talk trash about whatever weird game he likes, and he still likes weird games, right? And it was great. It was fun. It was just banter, friendly banter. So one time I walk in there and he's like, he's talking shit. And I'm like, hey man, what are you doing tomorrow? He's like, that's so weird. I'm actually off. All right. So I got nothing planned. And I'm like, bet, you want to help me clear out a burnt down restaurant? And he was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, the restaurant I have burnt down, and there's a bunch of shit there that needs to be cleared out. I could use some help, but I really don't know anyone in this area. I got two of my buddies coming from out of state, but more the merrier. And this dude actually showed up. He didn't do much when he was there, but he actually showed up to the restaurant and helped us clear it out. And it was a shitty job, right? Like, it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he showed up and came and helped us out. And it was he always says it's a friendship on a favor. He did a favor and then we developed a very close friendship. He's one of my best friends.
That's awesome. And so now you're in the space of helping people professionally. You've pivoted off of the dumb life.
To a degree.
To a degree. And now you're professionally helping people, correct?
Yep. We help empowering entrepreneurs. We empower those that empower.
And have you met a lot who have been kind of where you are, down, not knowing their direction, their path, and been able to lift them out of that in spite of their.
Right. I think it's like anything. When we first start getting in something, there's a pressure to it that we put on ourselves, and then we feel we need to be, right? Like, everything we see, we feel we need to, like, oh man, I'm not that, I need to be that. Oh, I'm not that, I need to be that. And what happens is we get so caught up out here that we're not here. Right. And so then we stress and we judge and we like tear ourselves apart. And I remember those times. I did it very well. Right. And there's times I still fall into it where I'm like, get out of this, Mike. What the fuck are you doing? Right. Like, we all have this thing inside us, our voice, right? Like, some people call them ants. My mom gets real therapy on us, and they're like, ants, automatic negative thoughts, right? And I'm like, oh Jesus, I thought you meant like my aunt. She is negative too, so I get it. Right. So it's automatic negative thoughts. But and people get mad at me. Like, literally, people have gotten mad at me for this but I say the most important conversation you have every day is with yourself, right? Some very religious people will say otherwise, but I say you can't have that conversation if this one's not right.
Absolutely.
Right? This conversation blocks you from the other ones. Right. So it's that conversation we have with ourselves, and we tear ourselves down. Like we beat ourselves up, and then we put this crazy amount of pressure on us, and we expect it immediately. Right. Like I literally thought when I opened the doors to my restaurant, I was going to be a millionaire the next day. Right. Like it was just like, come on, the door's open. Right. Like I didn't know jack shit. And so what I think is I've been there. I know what that's like. I know the conversations you're having with yourself. Let me partake in this conversation like I wish someone was there to partake with me for the first decade in the journey. And let's do some things that we know will move the needle faster for us to get results faster. So then we can shut that up a little bit and we can prove it wrong. Because there is a point that evidence matters. And until we have evidence, we doubt it exists. So what I want to do is create evidence extremely fast. Because then there's belief. And with belief, we can do crazy things, as we already seen.
One of the things that I love about your coaching style, and that I've kind of adapted in my own coaching style, is that you try to stay away from opinion and base it on fact and evidence. And but in order to do that, you've had to actually do some in-depth study, you actually put in the work necessary to be a successful entrepreneur. When I was teaching the small business course at the community college, one of the first things that I would have to tell these people is you still got to go to work. Like if you were doing for a 9-to-5 job, what you're doing for yourself, you'd be fired. So you got to go to work. Right. And you base a lot of that on solid evidence so that you can not give your opinion, but give the facts. And I think that's an important distinction, when working with people and helping others, they want mentorship, they want guidance. They don't want your opinion.
Right. But if I give you my opinion, I made it about me. And that means I don't care about you. All right. And I don't want to be that. I was that for long enough in my journey where I just cared about me. Right. I want to talk about research that we found, right? And statistics and numbers that we know to be true based off typical behavior, right? That's what we base everything off, typical behavior, right? So, because then that puts you in the best position to get the result you want more likely and more often. And that's all we want. It's not, everything doesn't win. Like still to this day, like everything we launch doesn't, crush it. All right.
Well, so you tell a great example of that with the sandwich that you tried to put out.
Oh God.
Surf and turf burger? Yeah, tell us that.
Yeah. So I don't know if I've been in the food world for a while. My parents had some food restaurant or some food establishments when I was younger too. I love food. My mom was in the kitchen a lot. My dad would not do anything in front of my mom towards me. All right. So I would stay in the kitchen a lot. So I know my dad couldn't whoop my ass because it's something I did. Right. And I learned food is comfort. Right. And a great way to build relationships and connect with people is over bread, breaking bread. Right. So it's been something I've been into my whole existence, I feel. And so I had restaurants and bars, like we talked about. I had food trucks, I had catering company, things of that nature. And for a while, I just loved creating different meals that I thought would just be like revolutionize taste buds, right? And my meals sound different, like all of them, even now, like the ones that are hits sound different. You're like, oh, is that really good? And I'm like, yes, it's brilliant together. So not everyone's a hit, right? I tell everyone, for every item you see on a menu, there was 99 items tried that were not good, but this one was not good. This one was god awful, right? Like that's a weird phrase, but it was awful, right? And I thought if I took a burger, right, and so I like making stuffed burgers, right? Like there's things in it. So every bite, there's layers of flavors, right? Rather than like condiments, burger, bread. So I'm like, so I did this cheddar bacon one, delicious, right? Like I did like there's some that are very good. There's some, not so much. This one, really, really bad. And I took the burger and I put like a mixed seafood in there, like crab, lobster, shrimp type combo in the burger. And then I cooked the burgers and I would put cheddar cheese and Old Bay as well. And I was like, this is our surf and turf Maryland Beast burger, right? Like in this area, people are gonna love that, right? Because this is that area. Like we have the ocean here, but we also have the Cape, right? And we have the Chesapeake, right? Like there's a bunch here that's very water-esque, very crabbing, right? Like people have boats, they go pot themselves, right? We're literally having fresh fish, right? Like it's that type of area.
Right.
So I'm like, this is gonna be a huge seller. Like we're gonna rock this place. And at this time I'm married. And I would always make it for us to try. Typically I would make it for me first, then I would make it for us, then I would make it for some friends. And then I would put it on the truck if it had to pass a couple tests. But this one, for some reason, she was there. So I was like, you know what? I'll just make two. Right. And I made two and I made her and I gave it to her. And I was like kind of fixing some things and cleaning some things up. And I saw her face. And you ever see someone's face and you go, oh my God, something bad happened? It was like that. It was like there was no hiding this, something bad. And I was like, there's only two choices here. It's either what she just bit or magically at the same time she bit it, it hit. Right. Remember, human behavior typically tells me what you just bit. So her face looks like she's gonna throw up. Like she goes Casper white and then like a shade of green. And I'm like, what's up? She's like, did you poison this? And I'm like, no. All right. I'm like, why? She's like, it is so bad. And I'm like, no way. All right. She's like, no, like the worst thing I've ever tasted. Not that you made, the worst thing I've ever tasted. And now I'm like, I don't even know if I want to try this, right? Like, if she's being real with me or not. So I don't know if she's messing with me or serious, but everything tells me it looks serious, right? So I'm like, oh, all right. And so I bite into this thing, and it's literally like the ocean took a dump in a burger. It was, so what happened when the burger was cooking, all the seafood was cooking, but there was no place for the gas to go. So it just sat in it until you bit it. And that exploded the bubble of fume. It was so bad. So don't buy that if you ever see it.
Don't buy that
unless they know how to make it better.
But it's a good learning tool, because now you say you can't pick your hits. You just got to put out your singles, right?
They right, 100%.
That's your phrase.
Think about musicians. Yeah, musicians do it all the time, right? Musicians, like we talk about these great musicians. Michael Jackson, well, he had songs that people don't even know are his, like trash, right? Like Whitney Houston, amazing. Some songs where you're like, what the fuck was she thinking, right? Like you can go, the Beatles, like you can go through every major one that did amazing things and go find songs that were just not good. All right.
Yeah,
Queen.
Yellow Submarine is not like, shouldn't be on their greatest hits.
Right. It's like, it's a nice little jingle for that one line. Right. But it's, they had a real good line. They thought they had a real good song. But here's the deal. We don't know. And as producers, we're all producers. Our job is to produce. It's not to judge. It's to produce. The people get to pick the hits. And that's all we want, because then it tells me it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, where you're from, anything. All you get to do is show your art, and whoever sees it gets to pick the hit. So it's not up to you to judge it. It's up to them. Let them do that.
I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs get caught up, is that we try to serve ourselves with what served us, and we forget that it's filtered through somebody else's dichotomy. And so we don't put it out because we're like, oh, well, that didn't work, or this shouldn't work, or, hey, this is amazing. And then you get crickets, and then you get self-doubt. So you get this loop. But you're saying just keep putting them out. Yeah.
Some of the best videos I thought I made, no one likes. And some of the dumbest shit I thought was part of are things that wouldn't matter. The thing that the video has the most hits for us are virtual video. I'm wearing a dress walking into a building. Literally, that's it. I was like, I thought the reason why I was like, I don't care, put it out. I didn't think anyone would see it. Right. And then it's like over 5 million views on this thing. And I'm like, what the hell? Wearing a dress? That's all I had to do. I would have done that years ago. No, but it's like, we don't get to pick the hits.
Yeah. And it wasn't even just you, it was you and your team. But I think what also
And
made
about
that a hit was the story behind that, because you were coming to the
Right.
defense
100%.
of one of your people. So share that, because I think that's an important key to that story.
All right. So something about us, the Unleashed, myself, and people around. You can say anything you want about me. You're probably not going to offend me or upset me. All right. I'm sure I've said worse about me than you'll say about me. I'm sure of it. All right. If you mess with my people, though, you got my attention. Right. Like that's a good way to get my attention, to make sure we're on the same page and where we are as one another. Now, you might not like my response, but we're going to be on the same page with one another. So someone made a sly comment towards one of the people that are part of our team, Margaret McClure. And the way it was received wasn't a way like you had respect or cared about that person. And that's not acceptable in our world, right? Like, to be part of our world, we're going to have respect for that, or for each other in it, because if not, then we shouldn't be in the same one. And without there's this thing, right? Like in relationships it's always fun, where you have to figure out where's the right place to go, that I didn't make the person I'm caring about and that I'm being here for feel less than by the way I was here. Right. So there is still that tantrum. So it was like, as bad as you want to be like this mother, right, and start going ham. We always want our people to feel like they stepped into their power too. We didn't take that away from them. So what we thought was, all right, like they wanted her in a dress. We didn't know they wanted just her in a dress. We thought they wanted us in a dress. So we showed up in the dresses. She did not. And had an interesting conversation with a person that at that point we knew was no longer in our list of being a client, but it was a way to end that conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's important that we let our people know that they are our people, and we will defend them. You know,
Yeah, right. We got their back.
That's part of why I have this, named a warrior spirit. Like, you're on the battlefield with these people who are going through the same shit we are, and we're all in this together to help each other through. So, as we kind of wrap this up, if you were to give your best word of advice, because I know your daughter is now in New York, going to school, doing really well. Your rest of your team is starting to make good strides. What would you impart to those that are just starting the journey or in the middle of that struggle, looking to still plow through? What's your golden hit that you know is hit?
I don't know if I got one, but what I think everyone needs to know is two things. They are worth all their dreams, right? They are worth it. They might not be capable to get them all right now, but they are capable of becoming the person to get them all. So in other words, they're worth it. The other thing is, make all of this worth it. All right, life is going to deal us some shit. Right? Like, we're going to take hits. Right, our hearts are going to break. Right, like, we're going to shed tears. Right, this is going to happen. There's going to be hard days. There's going to be bad days. There's going to be days that we thought were bad and then proven wrong, because there'll be worse days. Right, and it's make it all worth it. There's no point in doing all this, going through everything we went through, and just settling. Right, what's the point then? What was all of it for? Just to experience pain? So my big thing is make it worth it, and then know it's a marathon. Play the marathon game. I think all too often we want marathon results in sprints. That makes us frustrated and then feel less than, and it affects our exterior and interior. And it's just understand you're playing a marathon game, and there's a sprint part of it, but there's a race to it. It's the long game. It's playing chess. We're moves ahead. So have that thought process where it's a marathon. So you stop looking for the instant result, and you know that it's going to take time. And we're just building towards being able to run the best marathon we can.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I just read somebody else today. They said, stop making your blooper reel compared to someone else's highlight reel.
I love that.
Because
I have a hell of a blooper reel.
We all have a blooper reel that we kind of try to hide, but I appreciate you sharing a lot of yours today. I appreciate your time, and bless you, sir, for all that you do. And thank you for being not only a friend, but a brother by choice.
Amen.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. Thank you for letting me kick away.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Have a great day.